Joining us now is Ramy, and we're going to be talking about personal injury and law. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks for having me.
We've been talking for a few months now. It's nice to have you here in person.
Thank you.
Why did you decide to go into this type of law?
Well, initially, I realized a lot of our clients did not really understand the laws surrounding this area of law. Many of our community members. So I decided to dig right into it, know more about it, and practice this specific type of law. And as people started to come into our office and I started to explain the process, obviously that was life-changing for them.
Everything has to be documented as well, right?
Absolutely,
You
absolutely.
From the moment that we have an injury of some sort, and we realize that perhaps we didn't have the right insurances in place that protect us the way that it needs to be, that we need to be protected, then they can call someone like yourself as an attorney, and you're going to help them. But from the very moment that we're injured, we should be documenting everything.
Absolutely. So when God forbid a tragedy happens, you make sure you document everything, take photos of the accident scene, call any law enforcement, get checked by a medical provider. And also one of the steps people can take is actually more preventive. So
Okay.
one of the things they can do is look at their insurance policies, what they have at home. Let's say you have Geico or State Farm in your household. It's always good to review your policy, see the types of protections that are given to you, and see if there is a way to protect yourself and raise these protections
Okay.
so that you can protect yourself and others in the future. And I always say the best way to protect yourself is to invest in your insurance policies.
Really? Mm-hmm. I did not realize that. Okay. So, well, first be good physically fit, right? And,
Absolutely.
Right, take care of yourself. But also if something does happen, like my friend fell at the train station. She had to have a rod put in her leg. By the time you get to be my
Devastating.
age, a lot of people, things have happened, unexplained injuries, and all of a sudden you're like, wow. And they could be very, very hurt for a long time.
Absolutely. So one of, like you just mentioned this story, for example, and that's a topic that happens a lot with people.
Falls.
And that's where we say document everything. So you fell, a lot of people, what they do is they'll walk away, they'll say, oh, it'll be fine. And then they go home and the pain is getting worse. They end up going to the hospital and they end up with something major like that. Now, if I get trip and fall at a station like this and I keep walking, how can I document that evidence that I fell there? If I didn't just stay there, take photographs, take information of witnesses that saw me fall, take pictures of the defect itself, so that when I later try to make a claim, I can actually prove that I fell there. Because as a plaintiff's lawyer, it is our job to prove the case, not their job. So I can't, for example, go and say, well, I fell here 2 months ago. Really? We didn't even know if you were there, right? There's zero documentation.
Part of it is because when you're getting hurt, your adrenaline kicks in, right?
Exactly.
And you don't even know that you're hurt, and you're also maybe embarrassed.
And you're busy.
Right, and you're busy because you're on your way usually somewhere.
You gotta
right?
get somewhere.
That's right. So that's the time where you need to stop, pause, and breathe, right?
Breathe,
so if you
take a
feel,
moment.
if something happens, stop, pause, breathe, take a moment, and document something. If you don't need it, if you walk away, you're totally fine, no big deal.
Absolutely,
But
correct.
if you need it, it's there.
And it's always good if you have like a family member who's an attorney, just have their cell phone number, call them if you have something, if you have a question. Even if they say, well, there's nothing there, or don't worry about it, keep going, or they'll maybe give you advice as you're, on the scene itself.
What's one interesting case that you helped somebody get a good result from?
Well, one interesting case, well, a lot of the cases we have is a lot of typical motor vehicle accidents or trip or falls. But there are obviously a couple of ones that are just strange the facts are just very uncommon.
Okay.
And one of them we have at the firm is there was a pumpkin festival in Delaware. So what happens at this festival is they put a pumpkin in a cannon, and the cannon shoots the pumpkin, and obviously there's a competition, whatever the highest pumpkin there is. Unfortunately, as one of the pumpkins was shot up, the apparatus itself, it's almost like a car door, it's a metal piece, flew in the sky and landed on our client's head. Our client was a photographer. She was documenting the event.
Right.
She was looking away and suddenly she got hit in the head with this massive metal piece that almost
Wasn't
landed
supposed
from
to
the
be
sky.
flying, just a pumpkin, right?
Yeah, and there was a brain injury, obviously,
Sorry.
unfortunately. The other interesting case we have is I've had a client who walked in and said, I touched a fish at a fish market, and I got poked in my finger. And later I started getting fevers and my hand got infected and I ended up with like 4 surgeries.
Oh my goodness.
And when they walked in on the first day, I said, this is just unbelievable. I
Right.
honestly don't see this happening. I don't really see the connection between touching a fish and getting poked and this massive injury that you have. So go home, get me some documentation to show me. And a week later, she walks in and it's papers from the hospital saying, got infected from a fish poke. And, these are the infections that spread through her arm and she ended up with a surgery. So,
My goodness.
you know,
Yeah.
you always just get interesting,
Interesting
fact
cases.
patterns that you
Yes,
deal
absolutely.
with,
Well, it's good to know that there's someone like you that's researching, that's
Yes,
being an
absolutely.
advocate for people that are injured.
Absolutely,
So I
absolutely.
thank you for joining us today.
Thank you
If
so
somebody
much.
wants to go into your line of work, what advice would you give someone, a young law student? What would you tell them?
To get experience. So
Okay.
what I notice a lot is that young lawyers would go start on their own on day one because I don't know why. It's just, but it's always great to get experience. Like when I started, I worked with somebody who was doing it for 20 years, right? He took me under his arm and I started working with him and I learned a lot. There's a lot of nuance that you cannot learn in law school. You cannot learn on the books. You have to actually do it. And I admire people who want to start their own projects, but at the same time, there is a lot of nuance that you have to first get exposure, learn, and then a couple of years later, when you feel like you're prepared, at least for the most part, then you could embark on your career.
Doing a better job than for that client.
Than just going in on day one and trying to figure out for every case, and you're taking a risk with people's cases, where
Right.
you miss a deadline or you don't know how to file this, delaying the case or even getting it dismissed because you didn't know that specific nuance,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yay, Ramy.
Yay.
Thank you, Ramy.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Be well. We hope that you enjoyed this segment. We hope that you're not injured, but if you or someone you know does become injured, please take these steps to protect yourself. Be well.